Hello, ladies and lords. Today I'm going to have a quick chat about conflict and war. Will I draw Lucinda in a peachy scene? Why? Because I want to draw her stress-free, enjoying her tea, spending time with her raven Oscar. Honestly, I feel like Lucinda is the type that would just kind of sit topless on a balcony. So, you know what? It's canon. Currently, I'm about to finish the first draft of the last book of Dragon Mirrors, and I've been stuck with the final battle scene. And it's been a struggle, so that's kind of what I want to sort of pick my own brain about. And I think I'm just going to call these little videos, rants, or whatever, writer logs. Okay. So, depending on the author, style, and whatnot, often war and conflict or that kind of jazz requires either a lot of detail or little detail, depending on what you want your reader to focus. So when I'm saying I'm struggling, it's not to say I'm unprepared with such conflict. I wrote plenty of scenes in Dragon and Mirrors with various encounters, and I want to recap on those encounters in The Hunt Prince. So if you don't want spoilers, probably skip this part. The first one begins with Rith encountering Acacia and Pupo. And this one, it's just Rith has to run like hell to get away from a giant bear. But the major conflicts begin in the Dragon Trials, with the final one being that him and his team have to get out of the spell created by these sprites. Then there's Rith, who gets into a fistfight with Aelin. And then Rith enters the tournament in the Crimson Lands. First round, he fought a grown Cheller. Then he fights Aelin again because Aelin just doesn't like him. And then lastly, he fights a Drake. And Drakes are pretty hard to kill because you cannot kill them with a sword or like a dagger. These Drakes have very hard armor, and Rith had to stab the female Drake in the eye multiple times before his leg got chopped off. Acacia's a child there, so she's not doing something big. But as she gets older, she stabs a necromancer to get away. Rith and Acacia and Aelin have to fight Lord Ichabod and his men. Rith loses his Denoni instincts and fights Ichabod one-on-one. Rith and his master Luron fight a troll, and thanks to his enchanted arrows, they were able to get away. The last one, my gosh, the last one feels like plot armor to me, because those arrows weren't even his. They were given to him by a dwarf who was like, yo, you're going to Kunatar? You need these, because if you run into a troll, their only weakness is lightning, and that's not an elemental unless you're the Great Witch. Something I always ask myself is, how easy am I going to make it for my character not to get their heads taken off? And how believable will it be for my readers? And I found an interesting quote from someone who shared a conversation with me about a certain book, and I'm not going to mention the book, but this person said, and I quote, "Just because your MC is trained in a variety of weapons doesn't mean they are a good fighter." End quote. And that's true. I mean, it's like a duh moment, but I believe writers sometimes want the reader to believe so hard that their character is well prepared that we have to mention all of these things that they can do, and that's why they're going to win, because I don't know, they ran for miles and with like boulders on their back, and that's why they were able to defeat this villain. And I feel like that kind of steals the magic for the reader because it's overdone. We have to mainly tell it. And I'm not saying that I don't do that. You know, Rith, for example, for a long time could not master the Swift style because it involves sending all of your stellar to your leg, and it's just something that's really difficult to master, and that becomes something that bothers him. But we slowly see him get better at it. He's not just automatically good at it. And I think that's one of my pet peeves about certain things is my husband, he consumes a lot of books. He reads like high fantasy books that were written in China and was translated in a sloppy way in English, and he will read through all of that. He reads a lot of manga, he watches a lot of anime. He is a consumer of that craft. But I'll ask him like, "Oh, what are you watching? That looks interesting," because it's always something that's fantasy. And he'll give me the synopsis, and I'm just like, oh, because most of the time, and I know this is a trope, and I feel like it's overdone, so it took the magic away from me, where the MC didn't know that they were really good until we find out that they were really good, undefeatable, OP, like overpowered, and that kind of stuff turns me off because I like weak characters. I like characters who, I'm sorry, I like characters who are not kick-ass at the beginning. So with that said, I'm not saying that I don't write characters that are very strong or that I'm against it. I do write them. For example, in the Children of Rima books that I'm writing, the MC is pretty strong. He's pretty strong, but there's a lot of buts to that. It's like but, and then but, and then but, and then but. And I mean, I'm not saying people don't do that with their characters. All of this is running in my mind, and I'm writing fantasy with medieval and magic influence. That means I have to think of the magic system, and I have to think of the setting, how that plays a role, the enemies, their power level. And that's another hole that I don't want to fall into, is if my characters are not prepared, I don't want to plot armor them and say, but then, in the last moment, I'm gonna give a dumb example. And then Rith thought about the oatmeal cookie with raisins, and he knew his enemy hated raisins because who loves cookies with raisins? And so that gave him the drive to plunge his sword into the man's chest and pour a bag of raisins, I don't know, out of the back of his pocket, because he remembered that the raisins, he had collected them from a trader who was walking by, and he just happened to have raisins. And yeah, I think I'm gonna stop there. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this like booty pic of Lucinda. All right, until then, safe travels.